Hello. Let's create the API for this blockchain application. The API will serve two main purposes. One, it's going to allow a front-end application to interact with the backend in order to read data about the blockchain and then also write data to the blockchain itself. Second, this API is going to allow other blockchain backends to interact with each other on occasion by using their respective APIs. To begin, head to the command line and we're going to need to install the Express module. So right in the CryptoChain project, let's run npm I and then Express. And then in this course, we're using Express version 4.16.3. And make sure to save this as a project dependency with the -- save flag. All right, so with Express installed, we're going to add a new file to the project. We're going to add the first index.js file, so the default file, finally, for CryptoChain. So this will be the file that starts up the Express-based API and application. This will also be the place where we create the individual blockchain instance for the overall app. When it comes to developing the API, we're going to take a break from our test-driven development approach. We're going to be setting up various HTTP requests with Express, so it'll be far more efficient in this case to test out the new functionality by sending individual requests by experimenting with our developed application. To begin, we need to require the Express module. So let's make an Express constant that is the result of requiring from the Express module location. We're also going to get the blockchain class, so that way we can make a main blockchain instance. And then this is the result of requiring the local blockchain file. Cool. This exported variable from Express is a function from the Express module. This function creates a powerful Express object that represents an Express application. So what we can do is we can make a local app object that is the result of calling this Express function. Cool. Likewise, we can create the main blockchain for the app with a new blockchain instance. So have a local blockchain constant that is set to that result. Awesome. For our first request, let's define a GET request that allows the requester to get all the blocks in this blockchain instance. To define this request, Express gives us a handy .get function in this app object. So we'll call app.get. And this defines a GET type HTTP request. So a GET HTTP request is used to read data from a backend. So it's perfect in this case because we're going to want to make a GET request to return the blocks from this instance. This .get function from Express takes two arguments. First, we define an endpoint on the server where we want this GET request to be located. So in order to get the blockchain's blocks, let's make the requester send a GET request to /API/blocks. So that'll be the endpoint that they hit in order to read the blockchain data. So this API endpoint is the first resource. So they're going to want to specify that they're getting something from the API, and then the final endpoint is that blocks endpoint itself. All right, cool. Now for the second parameter, we have a callback function, which will fire when this GET request is used. This callback function has two parameters populated by Express itself, and that is a rec parameter and a res parameter. Respectively, they stand for request and then response. The request object is a very detailed one that gives us a bunch of information about the requester's specific request. Now, this will come into play later in other requests. For now, let's focus on the res object. The res object allows us to define how we want this GET request to respond. In this case, we want to send back the blockchain's blocks to the requester. And to do so, an apps method is a res object's JSON method, which can render a JavaScript object in its JSON form and then send that back to the requester. So let's call res.json. And then the argument is going to be the blockchain.chain. So this will send back the blockchain.chain in its JSON form to whoever makes the API/blocks request. Finally, we need to make sure that this Express application actually starts. And to do so, we use the listen function on the app object. The listen function is named listen because when the app starts up, it will start listening for requests until it's told not to. So we have this app.listen function. And this takes two parameters as well. The first is a port number that the process should run on. Ports are like addresses to reach running processes on a hosted domain name. The usage of various ports will become more crucial later. So a typical default port for a development application is 3000. So let's specify 3000 as the first parameter to the .listen function. The second parameter, again, is another callback function. So let's provide that callback function. For this callback, let's provide a console.log that says the application has started listening on localhost 3000. So localhost is the domain name that we're going to use to access this application while in development. For the console.log, let's have a string that says listening at localhost port 3000. So to specify the port, we follow with a colon after the localhost domain name, and then that's 3000. Notice though that we're hard coding the 3000 value twice, so let's pull this out into a constant of port. We'll set this equal to 3000, and now we can use that twice rather than hard coding the value. So let's have a template string with backticks instead of a regular string, and let's interpolate in our port value. So cool, it'll be listening at localhost port 3000. Let's go ahead and save this. And as a way to start this up, let's go to the package.json file and provide a start script. So a convention with Node.js applications is to have this start script in order to run the application. And in this case, the value for the start script is node index.js. So make sure you have this change of the start script as well as the index.js file with all of the code to start the Express application. Once you have that, head to the command line, and then we're going to want to run npm run start. Cool. And as we do so, the output is listening at localhost 3000 if all goes well. Now, the most immediate way we can make a GET request is through the browser. When your browser visits a URL, it makes a GET request to that address. So let's visit localhost port 3000/API/blocks. And then if all goes well, you should see the output of the entire blockchain, which in this case only consists of the Genesis block for now, but indeed we get an array. Very cool. Now you may be wondering why your output looks more similar to this raw output form. It's because I have a plugin installed on Chrome, which JSON formats any return JSON in the browser. You're probably interested in doing the same, so that way you can see the JSON nicely formatted. It's very great for development to see it formatted in this way. All right, before we move on, let's install a development dependency called Gnomon. So go ahead and kill the server, and then we're going to install a module called Gnomon at version 1.18.4. And then this is going to be a development dependency, so use the save dev flag. Gnomon is an alternative node engine that reruns the entire application after updates and file saves. So this is going to save a ton of time while we're developing the application code, because we won't have to manually rerun the entire app after adding new features. So since we have Gnomon now, head back to the package.json file, and we're going to add a new script called dev. And instead of using node to fire index.js, we're going to use the Gnomon engine to fire index.js. All right, cool. With the Express application set up, as well as the start and dev scripts down, let's move on and extend this Express application with even more functionality.